Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm wearing a beanie today.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss American History X, which released in 1998 from writer David McKenna and director Tony Kaye. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Edward Norton's character, Derek Vineyard. He is an ex-white power, white supremacist who has just gotten out of serving a 3-year prison sentence. He has returned home to his family and he is met by his loving brother, Edward Furlong, playing Danny Vineyard. But Danny is on the same path that Derek was on, and Derek is desperate to try to stop his brother from ending up somewhere hurt.
So I discovered a few things about the making and the post-production of this film, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh, right, yeah.
The film was shot in 97 and should have been released in 97, but it actually didn't come out until 98.
Okay.
And that was because the director at the time was suing New Line Cinema
Right.
for them not removing his name as the director. He
Right,
requested
yeah.
through the Directors Guild of America that then his name be changed to Humpty Dumpty, because that is how he felt about the film. I've got a little clip here, actually, of the director.
My vision of the film never made it to the screen because Edward Norton, the actor, was permitted by the producers to edit and alter the film, increasing the role of his own performance while decreasing the integrity of the picture.
So you can see that he was not very happy
Right.
that the studio had Edward Norton come in and edit the film. And Edward Norton extended all of his scenes that are in the film against the director's wishes. The director also went on to say that Edward Norton and Edward Furlong pretty much chucked the script out and did whatever they wanted whenever he rolled the camera on them.
Okay.
So he pretty much lost control of Edward Norton, and we have heard through the many years now that Edward Norton is notoriously difficult to work with. And I can see that this director just did not have the reins to reel him in.
Yeah.
Because I will say that Edward Norton's performance in this film is amazing. He got snubbed at the Oscars.
Yeah, yeah.
But he was nominated, and his performance is incredible. And I think the script or the dialogue in the film is also of that level. So it's kind of strange to see this director just going off on one, although I can say he has since apologized for those outbursts and that behavior, and does so at any opportunity he can to those that he was very angry about at the time. But I don't know whether he actually got the 200 million he was suing New Line Cinema for.
Possibly, yeah.
But then again, I've also not seen anything that this director's made since this film either.
I did see, I was looking at his list on Wikipedia and it's not very long. There was a movie called Detachment that I kind of liked the look of, but at the same time, yeah, like Tony Kaye, I suppose this is the only thing I know he really directed, and then from the sounds of it, he didn't. He just sat behind the camera and went, I hate you, Edward Norton, I hate you. And yeah, Edward Norton is noted, as you said, to be difficult, but at the same time, he is a character-driven actor, until something...
He's very enthusiastic and passionate about his roles as well.
Yeah, well, so is Christian Bale and
Yes,
a lot of other actors. I don't believe there's anything out there saying that Edward Norton is like nefariously evil.
No.
Well, okay, so he's just a good actor who, gets told off. I remember wholeheartedly the first time I watched this film, and it changed.
It's
changed
one of
me.
those that leaves an impact.
It did. It changed me.
I also saw this when I was 16 years old.
yeah.
And I didn't even really comprehend or understand racism. Being in the southwest of the UK,
Yeah.
where we are privileged to live, racism like that is not an issue. And it's basically learning it through American... like representations of America through film that was like, oh my god, this is such a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's only as the years have gone on, as I've grown up, seeing the real life as well as it being represented in film, that this is a real eye-opener, especially for 16-year-olds.
See, now for me, I was kind of the same, but I'd always seen racism, but at the same time, like Gary says, where we live or where I lived when I was a kid, like I was kind of in the dregs of kind of society. So like you kind of just worked with everybody, regardless of skin color or background or whatever. You just were like, I'm going over there, I'm meeting them, blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't like, you know, you knew racism there, but you just didn't give a fuck because, you know, that person could get you some cheap beer or that person could get you some cheap DVDs or videos. And that's where I got to watch American History X. Like, Dodgy Dave from down the road had his dodgy VHS tapes, and I got given one day, and it's just like, Iain, you got to watch this film. And I'm like, oh, what is it? Oh, it's Cube. And I was like, really? Yeah, it's a sci-fi horror. It's got some great special effects. You're going to love it. And before Cube was American History X. And I remember like taking...
Strange double bill.
Well, that's it. That's what dodgy people did. They just threw two films together and then sold off, right? And I remember going home and it actually had the little numbers that you had to fast forward to get the second film. So me, first time, I put the VHS tape in, I fast forwarded all the way to where the number was, and I just watched Cube. And it was brilliant. Then I was like, just like, actually, I kind of want to see what this other film's like. And I went back, in fact, rewound it, and I watched American History X. And Cube is good, but it ain't no fucking American History X. You know, it really, like I said, it really changed my mind, my eye-opening, not just to the idea of racism, but to the idea of the hypocrisy that is racism. Because as this movie highlights, a lot of the time, it's like, oh, we don't like you and we don't like you. But when we're pushed to the brink and when we've got nothing, much like when I was a kid, we'll work with you. We'll be friends with you. We'll deal drugs with you. We'll do this with you. And so after a while, you sit there going, what the fuck are you spouting? Mm-hmm. You know, the visuals alone, and that just starts off this movie as well. The visuals alone were really gorgeous to me because they tell you everything that's in present day in color. And then everything that is a flashback is black and white. And I don't know if that was the first time I really ever saw a film do that, where it's just, and it didn't need to tell me that it was a flashback, just the way that the black and white sequences act like a kind of memory dream. Yeah. Like it's already happened and you're revisiting it.
Yeah. And it's also, for me, a way of, not only is it being in flashback, but the majority of the flashbacks is when most of the extreme sort of racist stuff happens, and that is because of his mindset of only seeing things in black and white.
Yes.
But there is a sequence much later in the film that is a flashback, and it's the two of them as children on the beach.
Oh, God.
And that was in full colour. So I also put that down to sort of the innocence of childhood.
Oh, yeah.
And that everything is in colour and wonderful before the black and white days approach.
Yeah.
But yeah, this film starts in black and white, and we get to see Edward Furlong, who plays Danny Vineyard, who's hearing something outside. Well, he's hearing something going on in the room next door.
Yeah.
Edward Norton's getting his craft away. And he sees something outside, and he goes to disturb his brother, and he's like, look, somebody's breaking into your car. And we see Derek, Edward Norton, with a gun, ready for action immediately.
Yeah. Man, yeah, that sex sequence at the beginning, young me was like, woo, okay. I've always loved, and will always love Fairuza Balk. I mean, Return to Oz, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, The Craft, Almost Famous, American History X. I could literally list every film that she's ever been in, and you would just find her acting her goddamn fucking tits off. She's just so good. I mean, weirdly enough, every time she plays, she is just herself. But what she brings to each character, you know, there's like a bit of innocence here or a bit of crazy there, and then you get this, you know, version of her where you're just like, oh man, I wouldn't like to be locked in a room with her on my own. But yeah, the way that she reacts, and she's like, Danny, stop watching us. And then Derek goes downstairs with his gun. How many is out there, bro? And stuff like that. And he ends up going outside and he shoots one of the guys and he shoots somebody else. And then it cuts, you know, to present day. And so you will see the rest of the flashback later on and how Derek ended up the way he is. But we cut to present day, and you've got Edward Furlong, like we said, fucking John Connor, baby. I mean, Terminator 2.
Right.
I love Terminator 2, but this is his film. This is his probably the greatest role. It's a shame how the rest of his career has turned out, but I think people really missed the mark with him in this one.
Oh yeah, he's a standout in this. The two Eddies really
Yeah.
are really on their A game here. And yeah, we get to see him in his sort of school surrounding.
Yeah.
We see this other kid being bullied by these other youths, and of course it's a race thing, or it appears to be. It appears to be that way. And of course he stares them down, they stare him down, he breathes smoke in their face, you know, so it's antagonizing them.
Yeah.
And this is all set up for what will come much later.
And
But
it's just the crazy imagery, because you have that other kid who's obviously part of a gang or some kind of gang culture because of the jewelry he's got, the clothes he's got, the kind of the crew he's got with him. And then you've got Edward Furlong's Danny character, who has the skinhead. He has the chain hanging from his jeans. You know, they've both got this really, don't approach me, I'm a kind of thug attitude going on. But you've got Elliot Gould and Avery Brooks sat in an office talking about Danny's written project that he's just completed, which is his version of Mein Kampf.
yeah.
You know, the book written by Adolf Hitler. And Avery Brooks, man, the Cisco.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. And he's telling this other teacher, he's like, look, did you not tell him that he could write a book about any kind of political movement?
Yeah.
And the teacher's like, well, yeah. And
Yeah,
he's
I
like,
do.
so you gave him carte blanche to be able to do this?
Yeah.
So it's on you. So no, get out.
No.
And then he calls in Danny and he's like, Danny, why the hell did you write this crap? This racist crap. So like he calls them both out. I'm like, he's impartial.
Yeah.
And he's also really smart and he has lots of words of wisdom. And he's also like, Danny, tomorrow morning, you need to bring me a brand new paper. And I want you to write a paper about what happened with your brother and how it's impacted your life.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the wraparound for this entire film, is that it is Danny's story narrating from the beginning all the way to the end. And that's why we get these black and white flashbacks, because he is writing this paper and recounting his memories, so to speak.
Yeah. And he talks about when he leaves school, he talks about Venice Beach and how it was a nice place to grow up when they were a kid, but now all the gangs have come in and they've kind of ruined it. And it's, even though this film is 25, 26 years old, I still remember, like, when I sat there watching it the first time, like, I totally get that. You know, towns and cities and streets and whatever, all of a sudden one day it's a quiet, nice place to live, and then all of a sudden there's a gang hanging on the corner smoking. You're afraid to go down to your local shop. You know, you're afraid to cross the street just in case somebody comes bombing down in their car. And you start to look at society different. Like, where has all this come from? How has this all happened? And yeah, Danny heads on home because Derek has been released that very morning from prison. And you see Edward Norton there. And it's contrast, because when you saw him at the beginning, you know, he was just in his boxer shorts, just got out of bed, giant swastika on his chest, shaved head, gun in his hand.
Power tattoos as well.
Yeah, he is a scary, imposing figure. Danny rushes home and he still sees his brother as a hero, but Edward Norton's grown his hair in. You know, he's kind of a little bit more, I wouldn't say laid back, but a little bit more reserved, softer, yeah.
And he's smartly dressed as well. He's actually got clothes on.
Yeah. and he's there with his mum. You've got Beverly D'Angelo from the National Lampoon's movies. I mean, I've always kind of loved this actress, and I remember seeing her in this. It really shocked me, because all I'd ever seen her in was comedies.
Right, yeah.
And then I saw her in this, and it's just such a stark contrast of how good of a dramatic actor she could be, or actress, sorry, where she is, you're not really told, but you can tell that she's kind of suffering from some form of cancer.
Yeah.
The home that they used to live in is gone, and they're in this kind of smaller flat. The mum's sleeping on the sofa while Danny's got this big bedroom with all of his racial swastika, you know, Adolf Hitler kind of memorabilia all over the place. So she's willing on sacrificing so much for her children. Yeah. And you've got Danny, you've got Derek, you've got Davina, played by Jennifer Lynn, another Star Trek Voyager character, Kez. And then on top of that, what always and I only remembered for this time, is you've got little Allie.
Right,
this tiny little other girl as well. So mum is literally doing her best with what she's got.
Yeah. But then we get the friend of the family turning up at the front door.
Oh, man.
Ethan Suplee turns up with a video camera and he's here to film some good old racist propaganda. It's like, Daddy, sit down, tell the camera why you hate the world and give me all the details. And at the same time, you've just got Derek who's just like, hey, Seth, like, get out of here. I'm trying to spend time with my family. I'm trying to talk to my brother.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of sat there just eating sweets on the sofa.
I'm hungry. I want to go. Man,
Get out, Seth.
Ethan Suplee, I'm fucking shouting you out now, bud. You are my fucking... You're the guy. You're the guy. Mallrats.
The tugboat
this, fucking... My Name is Earl, all the way up to Wolf of Wall Street, where he lost a shit ton of weight and he was getting himself in shape and he just looks like a... But that's what I'm saying. This is how good of an actor this guy is, that yes, his weight was an issue and he knew it was, but people utilized him and he used his role. Like I was reading in the notes as well, him and Edward Furlong had real difficulty being aggressive and white supremacist and filled with hate and all this racial, because they didn't want it to affect them negatively outside of the film, because they were hoping to do it so well. So that bit where they've got the camera and they're back and forth for each other, I fucking love that bit.
Yeah.
I just think it's so good. Just the two of them just acting out their characters and shouting out all this racist hatred shit at each other, because that's what building their characters up.
Yeah. At the same time, we also cut back to Avery Brooks's Sweeney, who's sat down with the other teachers and the other people, and he's just like, look, this is the guy, the brother who's coming out of prison today. Here is the videotape of why we think some of the racist stuff has happened, and it's the news report of the day after that their dad had died as a firefighter.
Yeah, those are police officers. Those aren't teachers.
Okay, right.
He's gone to the police station because they're concerned that Derek has just come out of prison, and that he might hook up with Cameron Alexander, played by Stacey Keach, who they know is the leader of the biggest white supremacist skinhead gang in Venice Beach. Yeah, but they can't pin anything on him.
He's clean as far as
because. Up to 3 years ago, Derek was his lieutenant and Derek covered everything for him. So now they're worried that if Derek's coming back, he's going to hook up with his old crew. They're going to start trouble again. And man, backwards caps saved the day again. Edward Norton standing there like a 35-year-old man going, oh, my dad, man. My dad was shot. Oh, my God, I'm a teenager.
Every problem in this country is race-related, not just crime. It's like immigration, AIDS, welfare. Those are problems in the black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community. They're not white problems.
Shouldn't laugh. It's a very, very, very well done sequence. Yeah. Because, he is, in his 20s at that point, trying to act like an 18-year-old, trying to pretend that he isn't this educated actor outside. He's trying to be this 18-year-old going, I don't understand why you shot my dad. You know, he was only doing his job, but you've got all these immigrants coming in and people taking benefits and blah, blah, blah. And it is literally your snowball effect of the initial kind of what I would call the start off for somebody's racial views. Yeah, because then we do get to see them rally together and they put on all of their balaclavas and their masks and they go and attack this store, which some of them used to work in when they grew up. It was an American run town. Yeah. And now it's being run by these minorities. So let's get in there and fuck the place up because they don't have their green cards. Yeah. And it is horrible. Like what they do to this cashier lady. Poor woman, yeah. You know, they pour milk over her face and it's like, oh, now you blend in, you're the right color. And this other guy comes out the back with a gun, but he gets smacked in the face and they just get pummeled and the store gets trashed. You're like, oh man, but this is what I was talking about. When I was younger, I was watching them and, you know, crazy enough, I'm sat there, I'm 16, 17, much like yourself. My eyes are being open to all these things in the world going on and I'm watching these guys obviously kick off, and yet then when they go running into the store and they're doing that, I'm just like, well, how are you any different? What is this supposed to prove other than violence? You are violent and you are destructive and you are going to destroy this man's store and ruin and upset this woman's life simply because you don't want them to work there. But if they don't work there, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to move a white man in and open up a white store and sell white goods to local people. That's what this film is also about. It's about why they do it, the mentality behind it. And the film will go into that later on. But
we have to go on this journey, so we have to go to these dark places with
Yeah.
these characters too.
But like I said, as a young me, it was the nice contract that you're seeing these flashbacks and you're like, right, I understand what he was like.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure or understand yet how Edward Norton has now become this other guy, because we're going back to present day and he's talking to his brother and he's just like, you're not going to this party tonight.
Yeah.
I don't want you hanging around with
Stay
Cameron
away from the
and his
skinheads
crew.
and Cameron, yeah.
Stay away from the skinheads.
So, like, Derek's reformed now. Like, he went into prison, this skinhead racist lieutenant, but he's come out softer, gentler, and doesn't want to be involved in anything. You're like, well, what happened there? Like, we don't get to follow that yet. What the film's following right now is Danny, who is now in his brother's footsteps.
Yes.
And trying to shield him away from that. And that's where sort of the middle act of the film that's the direction it takes.
Man, I'm going to go for it. I got to go for it, okay? Starting with the speech at the table with Elliot Gould the night before the attack at the door. My God, what a performance. You know, it's just this whole conversational piece between Davina, Derek, Murray, Elliot Gould's character, you know, and they're all sat around this table and they're talking about Rodney King and how this true life event where, you know, this guy was beaten up by police officers and they got it on video camera and it started this whole racial thing in America. And Derek is obviously discussing about, well, you know, he shouldn't have been speeding and if he'd killed Danny and this, that, and the next thing. And Elliot Gould is coming back with counterpoints to say, look, yes, I understand what your viewpoints are, but you don't fully explain this other side, you know, issues with Jewish people or the Asian community. And Derek's like immediately just tries to shut him down and say, no, you're going off a tangent. You've got to stay focused on this. And I absolutely love that, because so many times you will end up in discussions with people. It starts off as discussions.
A civil conversation that turns into a debate, a discussion before it gets ugly.
Ugly, mainly because you say something, they counter something. You don't like what they countered with, and you don't want to admit that actually, yes, they have a fair point, because it then changes your point. So then you get more aggressive at them. And Elliot Gould just kind of stands. I love Elliot Gould as an actor. He just kind of stands there taking it, saying, yeah, I get it. But then the whole violence start to happen on the table. Davina wants to leave. She doesn't want to sit there. She doesn't want to listen to her brother's racist shit. She doesn't want to listen to her brother's racist girlfriend spouting off shit. So then it starts to get violent, and he's trying to shove beef down her throat, and he's choking her, and then he's attacking the mum, and he ends up pushing his brother around and stuff like that. And Elliot Gould is just in shock. Like, part of me, while I was watching this for the review, was just like, why isn't he getting forward? Why isn't he fighting him? Why isn't he taking him on? And then part of me is just like, why would you? This guy is clearly racist and aggressive, and if he goes in there, he's only going to fuel the fire that he's as aggressive and racist.
Yeah. The best thing for him to do is to leave, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
And the mum, Doris, she follows him out there and it's like, look, I'm sorry. I can't be with you with this. Like, you need to understand the world that your sons are in right now.
Yes,
and
I love
drives
that.
away.
I love that line. He's just like, you don't understand the world that your children are growing up in. And the way that she kind of, she's on her knees in front of the house.
Yeah.
And she stands up and she walks back. I thought the cinematography in this movie is absolutely fucking amazing. And she walks into the house and she says, I need you gone by tomorrow. And, you know, Stacy, the girlfriend, she's like, yeah, that's fine. He can live with me. But then it cuts to the night. We cut to the shootout between Derek and the gangbangers. And he gets that guy. Oh, my God. This scene has always stuck with me.
Put your teeth on that curb.
Oh, my God. Is that a real curb? He puts his fucking teeth... Because you hear that noise.
Yeah.
You hear that scrape.
The teeth on concrete.
You put it on the curb right now! That's it. Jack, no!
It's the camera is right up close.
Yeah.
The actor is spreading his mouth open. You could, like, in my mind, I'm like, that guy is just praying the cops come around the corner before something happens.
Yeah.
He's praying. He didn't want to be there. But this is all stemmed because previously we had seen them playing basketball at a basketball court. And Ethan Suplee's character, Seth, had bet the other guys that they could beat. You know, it was whites versus blacks. And Ethan Suplee's character's like, I can't do this. I'm fat and I'm just too heavy and they're going to beat us. And so Derek had to get involved and they beat the other team and threw them off the court. And so that one guy has now come back to steal the truck. And he's just gets his foot up and he goes for that curb stomp. And you get the shot where Edward Furlong is running, screaming no. Mm-hmm. And you watch him hit that back of the head.
It's there for a few frames.
Framed, yeah. And then it cuts
and
again.
then the police have come around the corner. Put your hands in the air. Put the weapon on the ground.
Yeah.
As they take him down. But it's just like how godlike
and
mythic he is on screen. The way he's lit like an angel in the darkness, you know, but he's just got the eyes of a devil. He is so proud and happy with these killings he's just committed.
At one point it's looking like he's smiling, and the next minute he's looking like he's angry, and he's kind of in shock as they're kind of pulling him away. And from there we would continue having flashbacks explaining what it was like for Derek in prison. But we have to watch him go and meet Cameron, Stacy Keach's character. Now, Danny's ran out the house. He's gone off with his mates. He's gone to the party. He wants to get drunk. He wants to have fun. And he goes and speaks to Cameron first. And you can... Stacy Keach is so fucking good as well.
He's good.
He's so good.
Such a slimy piece of excrement in this film, you know?
Every word that comes out of his mouth is like just layered with venom, because he's just trying to poison your mind, but at the same time he believes it. He's like a fucking preacher.
Yeah.
You know, he's converted all these boys into this army. He's got the internet, the birth of the internet, to be able to communicate with other cities and organize all these other things, but he can't get involved because, well, he doesn't want to go to jail. And Derek comes across them, tells Danny to wait outside, and then he confronts Cameron. He says, "Fuck you, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm not getting involved with this. I did my time. I did 3 years. You did 2 months, and you fucking backstabbed 2 other boys that did the time for you. So you're a fucking coward."
And then the punches start getting thrown.
Yeah.
And then, he leaves. And, we do see Seth wander back in there and then come chasing after him with a gun.
Yeah.
Stops the whole party. You know, and it's only when Danny comes over, calms it down, because Derek had also had that conversation with Stacy, and Stacy's like, "Go on, tell him what you told me." Yeah. But they managed to get out of there. But like the heat is on them now because, well, you never get out, really, do you?
Well, you kind of do if the heads are taken out, and we, even though we don't see it, I mean, there is a deleted sequence of a sequence where Seth and Stacy Keach Cameron is at like a little diner, and they have like this argument with this other guy in the diner who's on a date, and he would go off and get his mates, and then they follow Seth and Cameron and beat them up off screen.
Yeah.
And so we hear about that later on. Oh, they got beaten up by some guys. They're in the hospital, but they're not dead. And so it's like, once they've had their answers handed to them, let's see how happy they are to go back and try to get Derek and Danny. But Derek and Danny, they race off, and Danny confronts Derek. She's like, "What's your goddamn problem? What's happened to you? What changed?" And this is where we see the flashback towards the prison. So Derek had gone into prison. He'd obviously showed everybody his tattoos. He showed where his loyalties lie. He was afraid he was going to get jumped by everybody else who wasn't white in the prison. So he joins up with the white supremacist gang. And everything seems to be going fine. You know, they work out together. They eat together. You know, he's protected. But
he starts to get upset when he sees some of the other white elites, I suppose, doing little trades here and there with the Mexicans and whoever else is in the prison.
Yeah.
And he starts to get annoyed with it, and then he starts to call it out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you know what? Like, no. Like, this is not on. But at the same time, he's also slowly making friends with a black fella in the laundry room
called Lamont. I've always loved Lamont.
It's the fact that, like, Derek is all angry and pissed off, and he's throwing the laundry around, and he's like, "Man, don't take it out on the sheets. Like, you hate sheets. The only sheets I hate are those redneck hillbillies that wear the sheets on their head and call themselves the Kaye. And he goes off on this whole thing, and Derek just breaks down laughing. He finally breaks, and then they both start talking about sports, and they talk about baseball.
Yeah.
It's great because we see that they're on common ground. They're friends, and it starts to bloom.
See, that was the thing for me. Like I said, I got it when I was a little kid when I watched this movie, and I still get it now. And it's when you take two people and you put them in a really terrible situation, regardless of their backgrounds or their upbringings and stuff like that, they will inevitably have to work with each other. I mean, I got this from Enemy Mine, like
Right.
years before, but everybody else needed fucking Edward Norton to explain to him. But yeah, when I first saw Lamont the first time, I just loved the introduction to this character because we hadn't seen any black African-American style characters other than Avery Brooks try to talk to Derek or Danny. And Derek could have gone probably throughout his whole prison time not getting involved. But because of the way he'd been brought up or changed by Cameron, he was told, we shouldn't be dealing with anybody. Do not be dealing with, the Chinese or the Italians or this or that, because we just want everything to be white and superior. But it has to mix or it will never get strong.
And so he kind of like, when he sees all these dealings going on, he kind of ostracizes himself.
Yeah.
After like the other guy, I guess the head of this group.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey man, knock off with the preaching.
Yeah.
Like this is the way it is in the prison. We have to do these little deals. It helps everybody out.
Yeah.
And he kind of just walks off, and then he starts doing weights on his own, sits at the table on his own.
Starts hanging out more with Lamont, talking with him and stuff.
But that's put a big target on his back, and we
Yeah.
see that in the shower room sequence.
God damn. Like for me as a kid, that was a big eye opener as well. I'd always watched Prisoner Cell Block H. I always knew prison was fucking bad and shit.
Yeah.
But I'd never actually seen like 5 guys walk in, grab another guy, slam him up against the wall, and butt rape him. I'm just going to be honest, because that's what this sequence is. I mean, I've always had that image stuck in my head of when he falls on the floor.
Yeah.
Edward Norton falls on the floor and he's kind of slightly concussed or whatever. And you've got the blood coming from the top of his head, but then you've also got the blood coming out from underneath his kind of stomach, which you kind of know is ruptured anus, whatever. And he ends up in hospital, and Avery Brooks, Dr. Sweeney, has to come in and kind of chat to him, find out how he's doing, because he was his original teacher, and he wants to see he's taken care of. And it's the way Edward Norton just breaks down and cries.
Yeah. He just asks him some really important questions that gets him to think about why he is where he is at now.
Yeah.
And the fact that nothing that he has done in his life has done anything to improve himself or his life.
Yeah.
And he breaks down. I was like, it's
Yeah.
a great sequence, great performances from both of them.
Oh God, yeah.
And so and then we see him back in the laundry room. He's doing the laundry. He knows he's got a target on him.
Yeah.
Like he knows like the brothers could jump him now. He's fair game.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the white supremacists, they could get him for revenge at any point.
Anybody
given
could
still.
just, nobody's watching his back.
Yeah.
But somebody is, because he says there, look, every day I kept waking up and kept thinking it was going to be the last day, and it wasn't, and I kept just watching over my back, and time just came in, and I just kept reading the books that Sweeney was giving me, and it was opening my eyes, and then it dawns on him before he's leaving for, because he got paroled, that Lamont must have put in a word.
Yeah, to the brothers and be like, he's off.
Nobody touched him.
Yeah, hands off.
Hands off. Nobody touched it. And I just love that, because you don't know what the background really is of Lamont. He says that he dropped a TV on a guy's foot and that got him 6 years. And I kind of partially do believe it, because
You want to believe him?
I want to believe him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
such a sweet character that I kind of just like, look, that would just be ironically funny that Derek had been saying about all the people in jail and how they should be there and they deserve to be there, and then he meets this one guy who really doesn't deserve to be there because he dropped the TV. He was stealing the TV, but he dropped the TV on the cops. But then, was that true? Was Lamont maybe a rapist murderer, and he's trying to redeem himself and stuff? I don't know. I just love that little sequence just before he leaves. Edward Norton's leaving the prison, and they bump fists, and he's just like, I owe you. And he's like, you don't owe me shit, eh? And he's just like, no, I owe you. And Lamont's like, whatever.
I owe you, man.
Man, you don't be shit, aight?
Yes, I do.
And then we cut back to present day, and Danny has heard this story. And he believes his brother, and he understands it. And he's just like, my God, and it's kind of like Danny's eyes are open now, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with these people
And
that
that's
hurt
why he
my
ends up
brother.
spending the whole night then writing his paper until the early hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's great. You just feel this wave of optimism and hope wash over you as an audience, over the characters in the film. It's a new day. Gonna take my paper in to the headmaster. Gonna change my course of life.
Yeah.
But they go into a diner, don't they?
They stop at the diner, yeah.
Do you recognize that diner?
Is it the one from Pulp Fiction?
The one from Big Lebowski.
Oh, it was
It's
close.
the one where Dude and Walter are sat out when he's got the toe.
Oh man, that would have been cool if they
If
got
they
in
were
the
just-
gun
yeah.
and you just saw like a jumper and a big guy like holding a gun like nobody play with the rules. But yeah, they're just getting a coffee and they're getting a donut or whatever, and Avery Brooks turns up with the cops and he explains the story about how Seth and Cameron had been beaten up the night before, and they kind of want to see if Derek's involved. And Derek's like, look, I'm trying to stay clean. You just bring me in. I've literally been out for like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And you're dragging me into all this shit. But Avery Brooks is like, look, you made this fucking bed. I'm just trying to help you fucking,
Clean it.
and keep it out. Maybe you can speak to some of the other guys in the group and find out what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And Derek's just like, yeah, okay, fine. I just got to take Danny to school, okay? And so he's taking his brother to school. And I'm going to try not to get emotional with this ending because, man, it's always just fucking hit me. But it's just like Gary said, it was a beautiful new day. The brothers they're hugging, they're loving, they're hoping to meet up again at the end of the day and, just go to school, Danny. And Danny walks into the toilet and puts the paper on the side. And as he turns around, we see the gangbanger that he'd seen the day before. And he pulls out a gun and he shoots Danny, twice in the chest?
Yeah, no hesitation really, just
Blam, blam.
it's over.
Now, there had been moments periodically where this character had been kind of looking at Danny previously, and they'd even
There was a lot of build-up, wasn't
they
there,
were
from the...
driving past the house in the car and
Yeah.
things like that. And like the first time I saw the movie, it was a racial thing again. It was just like, oh, he's just angry about the confrontation in the bathroom. But this time watching it, I was like, it could have been a gang initiation.
Mm-hmm. You gotta kill someone to join in.
You gotta kill somebody to join in, and you might as well kill that cracker because he pissed you off. Do it in your school. Nobody's gonna touch you. Even when you go to prison, you'll be covered by us.
That's it. Again, it's like one of the earliest films I've ever seen with a school shooting, and it's just the horrified screams of everyone in the background hearing the gunshots ring out is just as terrifying. But yeah, it's
blood hits his face, and he's just kind of stood
there in shock
Yeah.
that he's done it. But then again, the film is in like a lot of slow-mo for these moments as well, so it really lingers on those moments, which is great because they have such an impact. And again, the music score as well by Anne Dudley just really elevates all these scenes. It really hits that emotional chord, which is really upsetting, especially as Derek, like, for some reason, he's like, he had already left the school, but he kind of knew something was up because
he'd seen that. He'd said to Danny, like, I saw a car drive around, and he thought it was the white.
They thought it were after him,
but then he saw the green car drive past him again, and thinking, no, something's, it's like a brother sibling tuition. He knew something was up, and he races back to the school, and fucking Captain Sisko stood there at the toilet just looking in so shocked. You don't know what happened to the shooter. Did they get him? I like to assume that they got him.
Yeah,
and he's in the back of a car and he's in shock and he's going to go to jail and he's going to serve his time. But you don't know that. All you see is... Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You see Derek run up and he's just like, let me pass. And he goes in and he grabs Danny's body and the two of them just sit there in the blood and piss.
Yeah.
And he's in such shock. Edward Norton's in such shock because this is what he didn't want. And they were almost out. But he also knows that this was also mostly all of his fault. But then, ironically, we forgot to bring it up. There was a sequence that Danny mentions about their father. How they were sat there at dinner, Edward Norton with his backwards cap, Edward Furlong with his long hair. It's such fucking 90s, isn't it? And Edward Norton, Derek's character, is talking about how Dr. Sweeney, Avery Brooks' character, has given him this book, and he's really excited about reading it, and he's just opening his eyes up to all these different things, and it's brilliant. But the dad, obviously, who we know will die in a gang shooting, explains to him about how he actually doesn't like the fact that they are pushing these books, and he doesn't want his son to believe in every tiny little morsel that is fed to him. Have your own thoughts, because some of this can convert you. And Danny kind of says in a monologue, like, that could have been where our first racist kind of viewpoint
I think
starts to really
it's the
come
fact
from.
that they didn't even realize that they were being manipulated by their father, because like, I mean, the film kind of like reinforces the fact that you're not born racist.
No.
You're taught it.
Yeah.
And you pick it up from your surroundings, and that's where they attribute the racism in the family from the father.
Yeah.
Even though they may not have realized it until this point of the story.
Yeah, well, it's a complete eye-opener.
Yeah.
Especially because the movie starts with them going, look, this is why Derek is angry, because his dad is dead. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the movie, it's like, Derek was angry because his dad was dead, but his dad could have died because he said something bad, which brought on a situation,
it's the fact
and
that
it's a snowball.
they blame black people for it, but you know, the real problem is the crime. But they're just going, okay, now it's all the minorities. That's the problem. So if we get rid of all of them, then the problems will go away. But obviously they won't, because there's still problems. The crime is the problem. Yeah, but it's but I mean, the film's not going to solve all of like the problems. It is just a commentary on it, but it does layer it interestingly well, that it feels really, really real and authentic and realistic. But at the same time, it is dramatized enough as well to really give like all of that emotional weight, so that it means something. So when the film's over, you think about it.
Oh, totally. I sit there and I think to myself, you know, like, how does Derek go home and tell his mum? Because his mum had gone.
His mum's already dying of cancer at this moment, and because there was that moment where she was coughing into her thing, and they were hiding it. So
she'd been going throughout the movie saying to Edward Furlong that he was her baby boy.
Yeah.
And she wanted him to grow his hair back, and now Derek's got to go back and tell her that he's not coming home. He's got to tell his sister, who was going to college, that she's not coming home. Little Allie is going to grow up without a brother. I like to think, like, does he go back and get Lamont out?
Yeah.
You know, and visit him?
I don't know, the story doesn't feel great for this family post the end of this film. It just feels like it's going to be really hard.
But it just, like I said, it's one of those movies that makes you think what happens next. Like, most films don't. Most films go big explosion, end credits, and you walk away. But if that's the case, that's fine. But a movie that lets you think after, like a good book, before you put it down, makes you go, oh god, I could go and watch that again. But it's really hit me so many times. I'll give it some space, but you're there. I got you.
Yeah, and so that's why I also find it fascinating that the director had such a reaction to the finished product.
Yeah,
you know, but at the time anyway, especially when it hit such a raw nerve, this film.
But it wasn't like a huge blockbuster, wasn't it? It didn't win Oscars.
No, as I said, Norton was nominated, so but like it got some recognition.
Like I said, for me at the time, like, I watched this before Fight Club. But when Fight Club dropped, everybody was like, "Oh my god, Edward Norton's amazing!" I was like,
"Did you not see him 2 years ago?
Did you not watch American History X? Oh yeah, I'll get round to it." But Fight Club is such a layered message on society and the way we look at things. I'm like, bitch, you really need to watch American History X. We're not all fucking Brad Pitt wearing panties, motherfucker. We're Ethan Suplee,
right? Well, yeah. What were your favorite scenes from American History X?
Oh, man, where the fuck do you start? Honestly, like I don't want to cheap out and be like the whole movie again, because I keep doing that with some great movies. But it's just sometimes it's just too easy, because you're like, oh, that sequence was great, but that sequence was better. I love seeing Firuze Balk naked at the beginning. I think she's sexy as hell, and I do love just her way her character just progresses all the way through this movie as well. Just, you know, she's this quiet little girlfriend in the background, just with her hat on, just listening to her boyfriend spout whatever he wants. But by the end, she's screaming at him, "Get away, you fucking end lover!" You know, I'm not going to say it, but she screams on. I love Lamont. I love all the sequences with Lamont, and the way he just gently, over time, breaks Derek down so that they can actually talk, because he doesn't have to.
No.
All they have to do is just fold linen and laundry and do it, but I just love the way how it develops, you know, from them not talking to them laughing and joking to the fist bump at the end. I love Stacy Keach. I love him just... I know he's evil, and he's always fucking evil. Like, please, somebody give me a Stacy Keach movie where he's a really nice guy, and I'll probably see him evil. I love Ethan Suplee. I I know it's not great, but when he's driving in the van,
Oh,
and he's
God,
singing
he's-
out the window. That's so good.
Yeah.
Love Avery Brooks. Love the way he just stands there and he dominates and controls most of the sequences he's in, opposite people like Elliot Gould,
Yeah.
and Edward Norton and Edward Furlong. You know, these are real great actors who have worked in some great movies, but he's the Cisco. He is the motherfucking Cisco. Okay, he's the prophet. Like, I'll fucking die on my DS9 hill. I will. Man, just everything really, all the way up to that ending is just emotional as fuck.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Yeah, the opening 5 minutes of the film, from the sex scene
Yeah.
to the shootout to
Yeah.
the beginning of the curb stomp sequence again,
Yeah.
just the slow mo Edward Norton out there, just looks so intimidating and scary even. Like when you see Edward Norton in interviews, he's such a frail, humble guy. But in this film, he is an unstoppable force that you want to get the hell out of the way from.
Yeah.
So yeah, that opening 5 minutes, really, really strong. All the scenes with Avery Brooks. Like, I've just got to
Cisco.
salute. The Cisco steals every scene he is in. He is a powerhouse of an actor.
Yes.
With a voice that demands authority and attention. And the scenes where he's schooling the other teacher and then schooling Danny about his paper is brilliant. And then the way that he comes in and sees Derek in the prison
Yes.
and has that speech with him, and he says to him, you know, has anything you've done made your life better?
Yes.
And that realization that no, it hasn't.
No.
All of my anger and hatred, and what has it got me? Nothing. It's
Yeah.
just destroyed my family, my relationships, everything. And that breakdown, just perfect moment.
Yeah.
The curb stomp, you know, it's like it is the curb stomp.
Yeah.
Like whenever you see a stomp in any movie or TV show or video game or anything, American History X comes right to the forefront of your mind, and you don't even see it happen,
Yeah.
really, but it's the close-up before it happens that paints the picture in your mind that says 1,000 words, you
Yeah.
know? It's an incredible sequence.
Now say goodnight.
And I think that the best performances overall come from the flashback dinner table sequence where they're debating and then they're arguing and then it starts to get violent all the way to them like splitting up. It almost fractures the family because, well, day after there's going to be, well, he's going to be going to prison after what else happens. So yeah, like that for me was the biggest dramatic moment in the film, other than the shocking conclusion.
Yeah.
Ian, do you recommend American History X?
I wholeheartedly recommend American History X. I think it's a movie that just has to be always watched by anybody who ever wants to learn film or understand film or just like I don't mean to be rude or anything, but if you're one of these people who just watches films for entertainment to pass 2 hours, this film's got nothing for you. It honestly hasn't. Because this movie is so layered, so well acted, so well filmed, so just it's such a shock and a surprise that this movie didn't get more awards when it first came out. I think it was just a sleeper at its time, maybe because of the controversy behind camera, maybe because people didn't really understand it or want to admit that this really does go on, but it still does go on even today. And that's what I would say to people. Like, if somebody came up to me at 16 years old and was just like, oh, can you recommend an old film for me? I'll be like, American History X. What's it about? I'm not telling you, you have to watch it. And if you don't get through it, that's on you. That's a you thing. You know, I'm sorry, but you looked at it and went, maybe it's not for me. And we get it, because you look at that image. I thought the same thing when I first went to see Romper Stomper. After I'd watched American History X, I kept looking at Romper Stomper going, it's not for me. Then I watched American History X and I was like, all right, Romper Stomper, let's go. And Romper Stomper is kind of up there and it's kind of the same and it's just as good, but American History X just, I don't know what it is. It just tops it. Maybe it's the actors. Maybe it's the performances. Maybe it's the writing. Maybe it's the camera. Maybe it's the imagery. Maybe it's the light. Maybe it's just absolutely motherfucking everything that makes a fucking good film good. American History X.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I think I'll also be recommending American History X. This is a great film. It's dark, it's unflinching, and it makes for a great character study on manipulation and hatred and racism, and it's utterly tragic. Edward Norton is mesmerizing here, one of his best roles after an amazing performance in this, and he is incredibly charismatic and damn frightening too. Edward Furlong was also in top form here, showing great range in his performance, and the brother dynamic really gives the film its emotional core, backed up with some great supporting actors like Avery Brooks. The music by Anne Dudley was suitably haunting and tense, while also complementing those emotional moments perfectly. It's a very well written film. Its characters feel real and believable, with some great scenes that stay with you long after the credits roll. High recommendation from me. This is a must watch. It's an important watch, especially in the discussion of race and redemption and family and compassion, you know. It explores some dark corners of American society. It can be a real hard watch, and it is fairly disturbing, but it is also hopeful and without a doubt a must watch. United by hate, divided by truth. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Well, my conclusion is, hate is baggage. Life's too short to be pissed off all the time. It's just not worth it.